Overall, the U.S. has been very clear that we, first of all, support a peaceful and stable Syria. And the new government, which has been in place for about a year, is really the best hope for all of Syria. And in fact, you saw where President Trump lifted the sanctions on Syria, mainly because first of all, their economic situation is terrible, and their infrastructure is terrible. They need to rebuild their infrastructure. They need to reestablish their economy, and they need to maintain security first and foremost in order to maintain national stability. So we support Damascus. What we should not be supporting is dangerous security situations which could unravel the security and create harm in Syria. And by that, I'm speaking in most important regard, it's with regard to the Kurds. There is no justification for attacking Kurds, and I want to be clear of that. Well, the overall commitment is that the new president move forward with creating a government, an inclusive government for all parties, for creating a stable environment for civil society, and for moving forward with what's best for all of Syria and all the components in Syria. However, we do not support elements of or actions from the government that destabilizes Syria. So in that regard, the United States, and I can only give you my observation of the United States, I don't speak for the government, but what I would expect is that the U.S. government make it clear that Syria and the president must do everything within their power to keep the peace in Syria. That is, first and foremost, most important. You're exactly right. It's destabilizing a part of Syria, but it has the potential to destabilize much more of Syria. As we know, the Kurds occupy a significant portion of Syria, and over the years, the Kurds have sacrificed and worked 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to maintain security and maintain stability. The efforts of the Kurds must be recognized, and they cannot be dismissed by the government in Damascus, because the Kurds play a vital role in maintaining stability and peace. So the attacks against the Kurds do exactly the opposite. And with regard to Aleppo, Damascus must do everything possible to make sure that the problems of these attacks in Aleppo don't start spreading out to the rest of Syria and are not an indication of more attacks. Well, first of all, you're absolutely correct. The Kurds have been vital, a key element in fighting ISIS, and clearly ISIS still exists in several parts of Syria, as we've seen with the U.S. military attacks on ISIS targets, dozens of targets in Syria. So ISIS is still a threat. And the best defense against ISIS, especially in the northeast, but also in many parts of northern Syria, are the Kurds. The Kurds are a key element in the fight against ISIS, and the U.S. must continue to support them in that effort. At the same time, Damascus needs to recognize that they need the Kurds. The bottom line, Damascus needs the Kurds in the fight against ISIS and in keeping stability and security in the country. Attacking Kurds does nothing to unify Syria. Absolutely nothing. In fact, it does the opposite. the U.S. has a special envoy, Tom Barrack, whose job is to focus on Syria. That's his primary responsibility as special envoy. He needs to fully engage and remain engaged with the government in Damascus to ensure that they understand the U.S. cannot be satisfied with their policy of attacks. In fact, it's the opposite. The U.S. objects to this style of attacks, especially against the Kurds or any other component in Syria. So that needs to be made clear by the White House. Overall, I agree with so many of the important points that your guest has raised. And I think there's two fundamental issues here that need to take place. First of all, with regard to United States involvement in Syria, I suggest we need to elevate that discussion. The United States, and in particular, I'm talking about the Trump administration, cannot afford to stand on the sidelines, give recommendations and advice to al-Sharaa, and then watch what happens. The United States needs to be directly involved, along with other friendly countries that want to see Syria advance. The point is, the focus cannot be lost on simply advancing the Damascus agenda. We're talking about advancing the Syria agenda. And the United States, along with other regional countries, need to get involved to make sure that the Syrian people aren't left behind. Secondly, with the Kurds, well, that's what I'm talking about. I mean, that was the first part. I only gave you the first part with regards to what the U.S. needs to be doing. But secondly, on the Kurdish question, that is a very complicated situation, but it's a situation that needs to be resolved. The United States can't afford to ignore the Kurds. Syria cannot afford to attack the Kurds. The Kurds are a reality. The SDF is a reality, and the Kurdish accomplishments in Syria are a reality that helped Syria to get to the point where they are today. So the Kurds, bottom line is, the Kurds cannot be overlooked. The Kurds need to be part of the solution, and they cannot be part of the solution if the United States is simply leaving the resolution of the Kurds to Damascus. Well, it certainly looks like that. For my part, I was extremely disappointed on the actions Damascus has taken, and I was equally disappointed that the United States did not immediately object to what was happening and make it very clear to the Damascus government that they cannot be taking those types of actions. It's exactly opposite of what they should be doing. So the United States should make it very clear that they do not support those kinds of activities whatsoever. No question.